It is pretty clear that something is seriously wrong with American democracy right now. Tensions are rising, and politicians, rather than trying to reduce tensions, are turning up the heat. Predictably, protests are getting more violent. People are getting killed. Unless things change, there will be more deaths. Is it too late to change course? Political violence is rising. Can American democracy survive? Welcome to Into the Desert, exploring the wilderness of ideas. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. We need your support. Become a fellow adventurer by supporting our channel's mission of encouraging discussion, not division, on Patreon. The link is in the description. American democracy is in crisis. Protests against the federal government are raging in many cities, growing more violent. Both sides blame the other. The fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE officer was both tragic and predictable. Whoever you see as immediately responsible, with the increasing level of violent clashes with law enforcement, it was inevitable that someone would be killed. In fact, Renee Good was not the first. Only 4 months ago, Joshua John fired multiple rounds into an ICE vehicle, killing 2 detainees before taking his own life. The Department of Homeland Security reported that last year there were 275 assaults on ICE officers, compared to 19 during 2024. Vehicular attacks rose from 2 in 2024 to 66 last year. Those opposed to ICE encourage the rising tensions. Crowds in New York recently chanted, "Save a life, kill an ICE." Politicians demonize ICE officers, claiming that they are invading cities and kidnapping people. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in January said that they would fight Trump in the streets. Tim Walz in May referred to ICE as Trump's modern-day Gestapo. The current situation of rising tensions cannot continue forever. Economist Herbert Stein once said, "Things that cannot go on forever don't." But how do we end this before more people are killed? The first step is to understand the fundamental problem. The key problem here is that Trump won the election in 2024. And one of his major issues was illegal immigration. This issue has 2 parts. The first was to close the border, and the second was to deport those here illegally. He said that he would start with the worst criminals first. But he also said that he would deport all who were here illegally. Since taking office, he has closed the border and started deportations. The Democratic position is at best problematic. The first problem is that it is resisting federal law. Our current immigration law was passed by prior Congresses and signed by previous presidents. Both Clinton and Obama opposed illegal immigration and supported deportations. The fact that current Democrats do not like the law does not give them the right to ignore it. This is not a new problem. It dates back to at least 1832 and the nullification crisis during the presidency of Andrew Jackson. It has popped up repeatedly over the years. Given the supremacy clause in the Constitution, it always comes down on the side of federal law. That Democrats don't like the immigration laws still does not mean they get to ignore them. Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy faced similar issues regarding anti-discrimination laws. Democratic governors in Arkansas and Georgia opposed federal laws requiring school integration. Faced with opposition from these governors, Eisenhower and then later Kennedy sent in the National Guard to enforce federal law. Thus, one question would be, why is it okay for Eisenhower and Kennedy to use the National Guard to enforce federal law in reluctant states, but wrong for Trump to use the National Guard to enforce federal law? Another problem is the use of violent protests to oppose something a majority of people voted for. The critical word here is violent. The peaceful civil rights protests of the mid-20th century were not only proper, but also effective. They sought to persuade public opinion, which they eventually did, changing the mind of LBJ and enough others to drop the long-standing Democratic filibuster blocking civil rights legislation. Violent protests aimed at blocking the enforcement of federal law by a politician who won an election campaigning on that very issue is anti-democratic by their very nature. You may oppose the law, you may want to change it, but it is still the law. So what should we do? First, both sides should focus on turning down the rhetoric. In the current hyper-polarized environment, a truly democratic solution is effectively impossible. Yet, this can change quickly if both parties, and it would require both sides, decide to seek one. The next step would be to seek a consensus. This is often confused with compromise, but there is a key difference. Consensus is building the largest possible majority. Yes, it takes some compromise, but seeking consensus is required in an effective democracy. It is the realization that there are many groups with competing interests, and that those on the other side are fellow citizens who also have a say. They are not just people to be defeated. What would a consensus look like? Certainly, that all here illegally get to stay, or all have to leave, would be off the table. Such all-or-nothing positions are non-starters that only cause the other side to dig in and fight harder. Where in between we draw the line is hard to say, as that would be the end goal both sides should strive for. Yet there is also a lot of mistrust on both sides. So first, there would have to be some initial trust-building steps. Here is one suggestion. Start moving towards eliminating sanctuary policies that conflict with federal law. One way to do this would be for cities to enforce detainer orders for the worst criminals. This would reduce the need for ICE to go into the communities, which is causing the protests. On the other side, the dreamers, those brought here by their parents as young children, would be allowed to stay here. The worst criminals have to go. The dreamers get to stay. Even though it seems like an easy first step, it will not be. There are those on both sides who want all or nothing. There is also a lot of entrenched anger and mistrust on both sides. Even when both sides agree to seek a consensus on such a first step, there are still a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. Yet, if done right, it can build trust for even the more difficult discussions that will follow. While difficult, it is a solution that supports our democracy. So what do you think? Is it important to hold fast to your beliefs? Should we seek consensus even if we must compromise some of our positions? Is compromise always a bad thing in a democracy? How would you lower the tension? Let us know in the comments. We do read the comments and often post replies. And if you made it this far in the video, consider watching one of our other videos and supporting our channel on Patreon. Thank you for watching Into the Desert, exploring the wilderness of ideas. And to our fellow adventurers, a special thank you for helping to support our channel on Patreon.